They thought they could take my land and turn it into their precious park. The HOA showed up with smug smiles and official letters, certain I would fold. But what they didn't realize was that I wasn't standing alone. My wife is a lawyer, one who doesn't take kindly to bullies. Before I tell you how this HOA's arrogance cost them millions, make sure you subscribe. We share true stories where fairness, dignity, and justice always win out. I'd lived on that piece of land for nearly 15 years. It wasn't just property, it was my home, my garden, my little slice of peace away from the rush of town. My wife and I built our lives there. We planted apple trees. We raised our kids with bonfires and stories under the stars. Then one spring morning, I opened my mailbox to find a letter from the HOA. Bold and arrogant, it declared, "Notice of land reallocation. The HOA board has voted to designate a portion of your property for the community park expansion project. Please remove any structures, fencing, or personal property within 30 days. I laughed at first. They can't be serious, I told my wife, handing her the letter. She scanned it, her brow tightening. Oh, they're serious all right. But they picked the wrong family. That week, the harassment started. HOA members strolled by with tape measures, marking off imaginary boundaries. A board member named Richard even smirked at me over the fence. "Don't fight this," he said. The board voted unanimously. Your land is better for the community than for one man's garden. I clenched my fists. It's my land, Richard. Bought and paid for. You don't get to just take it. He shrugged. The HOA has authority. You'll see. By the end of the month, I'd received 2 fines for noncompliance and a threat of legal action if I didn't vacate the portion they claimed. I remember pacing the kitchen, anger boiling in my chest. They're trying to steamroll us. They think I'll roll over. My wife, calm as ever, opened her laptop. Good. Let's see how they handle a real fight. Her voice was steady, but her eyes had fire in them. That was the night I knew things were about to turn. The first step was digging into the HOA's so-called authority. My wife discovered something huge. The HOA didn't actually own the land they were trying to claim. They'd misread an outdated zoning map. My property was entirely mine, free and clear. This, she said, holding up the documents, is what's going to bury them. But we didn't just want to stop them, we wanted to make sure they paid for the stress, the threats, the harassment. And that's when my wife began preparing a lawsuit. Word spread quickly around the neighborhood that we were defying the HOA. Some whispered support, others were too afraid to speak up. Karen, one of the board members, sneered at me when I passed her driveway. You'll lose everything, she spat. The board always wins. I smiled calmly. We'll see. Inside, I was nervous. But every time I looked at my wife drafting motions, printing evidence, and highlighting regulations, I felt stronger. She knew exactly what she was doing. By the time we filed, the HOA was stunned. They'd expected me to cave under pressure, not launch a full-scale lawsuit. At the first hearing, their attorney strutted inconfidently, until my wife stood, composed and sharp, tearing through their so-called evidence like tissue paper. Objection, she said at one point, her voice ringing. The HOA has no legal claim to my client's land. This is an abuse of power. The judge frowned at the board members. Is this true? Do you have documentation? The silence in that courtroom was golden. And that was just the beginning of their downfall. The HOA tried to recover, scrambling for justification. They produced doctored maps, twisted bylaws, even called witnesses who lied about community agreements. But my wife dismantled them piece by piece. I'll never forget one exchange. The HOA's lawyer said smugly, "This land was always intended for community use." My wife leaned forward. "Show me where it says that, in any legal deed, zoning record, or city archive." Silence. He had nothing. The judge's gavel struck. "Answer the question, counselor." The lawyer stammered. "Well, it was understood," my wife's voice caught like steel. "Understood by whom?" "The HOA? Because the law doesn't work on assumptions." Neighbors in the gallery murmured, some even smirking. The HOA was crumbling under the weight of their arrogance. As the trial continued, the tide turned completely. My wife revealed emails where board members openly discussed bullying us into compliance. She displayed photos of them trespassing on our land, spray-painting markers as if they already owned it. The judge's face grew darker with every piece of evidence. Finally, after weeks of hearings, the decision came down. This court finds that the HOA acted without legal authority, engaged in harassment, and attempted unlawful seizure of private property. Damages awarded, $2.3 million, plus attorney's fees. The courtroom gasped. The board members slumped in their seats, pale and defeated. Afterward, neighbors who had once been silent came up to shake our hands. "You stood up for all of us," one elderly man said. "We've been afraid of them for years." Even Richard, the smug board member, avoided eye contact when I passed him on the sidewalk. His power, his threats, they meant nothing now. Karen? She moved out a month later. Couldn't handle the shame. One evening, sitting on our porch swing with my wife, I finally let out the breath I'd been holding for months. "We actually did it," I whispered. She smiled, resting her head on my shoulder. "No. You did it. You refused to let them take what was yours. I just gave the law a voice." I thought about that long into the night. The land was still ours, the garden, the apple trees, the memories. But more than that, the neighborhood had changed. People realized they didn't have to bow down to unfair treatment. The HOA was forced to restructure completely. The board was dissolved, and a new, fairer system was voted in. People laughed more, gathered more, lived without fear of ridiculous fines or harassment. As for the millions, we didn't flaunt it. We fixed up the house, saved for our kids, and donated a good portion to community projects, ironically, including a public park built on actual city land. Sometimes, victory isn't just about what you gain, it's about what bullies lose. Never let arrogance disguise itself as authority. Property, dignity, and fairness matter. When people stand together, and when the law is on your side, justice will prevail. The HOA thought they could take my land for a park. Instead, they lost everything while teaching the whole town a lesson: don't pick a fight with the wrong family.